Welcome to the channel, English Epics. Bobby and Lacey had been married for 2 years. Since they were an adventurous couple, intimacy was never something they neglected in their still young marriage. They experimented with blindfolds and toys. One weekend, Bobby playfully tied Lacey up and took care of her all day. He brought her breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and made sure she felt cherished and deeply satisfied. She loved being a woman who enjoyed trying new things. Outside of their private life, they were a perfectly normal couple. Both were in their 30s and highly successful. Lacey worked as a mid-level manager at a marketing firm, while Bobby was a respected attorney, just one step below the district attorney in their city. They had many friends and often attended dinners with couples and business associates. Without children, they had plenty of free time to enjoy their marriage through weekend getaways and spontaneous trips. Everything in their relationship seemed pretty close to perfect. It all began on a cool spring evening in May. It was a reunion, celebrating the 20th anniversary of Lacey's high school graduation, and she was very excited about the event. She could finally show off her new husband to everyone from her past and reconnect with all her old friends. Bobby wore a sports jacket without a tie, and Lacey wore a sleek black dress. She always kept herself in excellent shape, and Bobby always drew female attention wherever they went, but Lacey never minded that. "Hurry up, darling. We're going to be late," Lacey shouted from downstairs. Bobby took one last look at himself in the mirror and headed down. Grabbing the keys and kissing his wife at the door, they got into the car and drove to the venue in their residential complex. Their new home was still under construction. Upon arriving at the event, they entered with the usual greetings and smiles that accompany such gatherings. Lacey, having been the captain of the cheerleading squad and president of the student council, had once been something of a Miss Popularity. Bobby followed her as she chatted with various people, friends she hadn't seen in years. They shared stories about their lives, while she and Bobby talked about how they met and how it had been love at first sight. This went on for quite a while. Later in the evening, Bobby and Lacey found themselves alone. "How about another drink?" Bobby said to Lacey. She, having already had 3 glasses of wine and thoroughly enjoying the night, replied, "Why not? Just don't take too long." Bobby headed toward the bar, while Lacey stood waiting on the opposite side of the makeshift dance floor. The line at the bar was long. It was late in the evening, so Bobby took his place and waited. As he stood there, he glanced around the room. Attendance for the 20-year class reunion was impressive, and he was struck by how many people had shown up. He looked back at his wife and noticed someone talking to her. The man was wearing a suit and tie and stood about 6 feet 2 inches tall. Lacey had a wide smile on her face as Bobby watched them talk. When the man finally turned so Bobby could see his face, a grin spread across Bobby's own. He knew him. After being served by the bartender, Bobby returned to join his wife and her companion. "Tom," Bobby exclaimed, "what are you doing here? I had no idea you knew my wife, let alone that you went to school with her." Tom was also a lawyer, but worked for a different firm. He and Bobby had casual conversations from time to time, but they had never developed a personal friendship. "Hey, Bobby." "Yeah, I graduated from this school, with the prom queen herself." Lacey blushed at Tom's compliment. "So, did you two actually know each other?" Bobby asked jokingly. "Or did she just walk past you in the hallway without a glance?" "Actually, Bobby," Tom replied, "Lacey and I dated in high school and during our freshman year of college. I played baseball and had a scholarship, and Lacey was attending the same university." Bobby's expression shifted into one of curiosity. "Really? That's funny. I thought I knew about all her old boyfriends. She's never mentioned you before." Lacey's smile turned awkward as she began adjusting her dress. "We were both young and thought we knew what relationships were supposed to be like," she said. "Right," Tom replied, with an uncertain smile that seemed a bit less enthusiastic than before. "Well, I guess we all learn as we get older," Bobby said with a laugh, trying to ease the obvious tension. Tom replied almost in a whisper, I guess so. Casting. A quick glance at Lacey, who now looked visibly uneasy and was staring at the floor. Bobby then changed the subject and began talking to Tom about work. As their conversation continued, Lacey withdrew into herself. Watching them talk like old friends, she began to feel very uncomfortable and started gesturing to Bobby to wrap it up. She was ready to go home. Bobby and Lacey said goodbye to Tom and headed for the exit. At home, in their cozy bed, a conversation about Tom began. So, one old boyfriend was a secret. You never told me about a guy named Tom, Bobby said with a sly grin on his face. Lacey replied, Well, a woman is allowed to have 1 or 2 secrets. Right, she said with a playful smile, removing her jewelry as she got ready for bed. Besides, I had no idea you two knew each other, and it was so long ago I'd honestly forgotten. Oh yeah, I see him often at the courthouse. He's a lawyer too, Bobby explained. As for your secrets, that depends on what they are, he added, giving her a teasing look as he watched his now naked wife. About what? She purred as she slid into bed. Whether any of those secrets involve sexual fantasies, he said, just as their lips met. After the kiss, Lacey sat up, her breasts bare and beautiful. Looking a bit shy, she murmured, Well, there is something. Really? Bobby asked, his heart pounding. A sexual fantasy, he clarified. Tell me now. You know how I get when it comes to sex? I know, Lacey replied in a more serious tone. One of the reasons I love you is your sexual imagination. But this one, Lacey trailed off, suddenly feeling awkward. Bobby sat up on the bed beside her, sensing her emotional shift and noticing the unease spreading across her face. Sweetheart, I'm your husband. You can tell me anything. What is it? Lacey sat in silence for a moment, searching for the right words to explain what was on her mind. Well, she finally stammered, we've tried a few things with blindfolds and toys, but she paused again. Just tell me, urged Bobby. It's hard to explain, Lacey replied, clearly uncomfortable. I'm not sure how you'll react. Honey, Bobby said softly, you know you can tell me anything. What's on your mind? She hesitated, then said slowly, Well, I've always had fantasies. Not exactly the usual ones. Something intense. Something where I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I want to feel completely depressed. Not hurt, but overwhelmed. Physically, emotionally. Like I'm not in control of the situation. Bobby furrowed his eyebrows, listening intently, trying to comprehend her words. You mean something more spontaneous? More dominant? Lacey nodded. Yes. I want you to take over everything. Completely. When I least expect it. Like it's not part of the plan. Like it's just pure, raw desire, and I don't even know if it's gonna be you. She lowered her eyes, her voice soft. I want to trust you with all of me. Even the dirty and scary parts of me. Bobby reached for her hand, his voice quiet but firm. You're my wife. I love every part of you, even the ones you're afraid to show. Yes, Lacey replied. I want my husband to take me completely by surprise. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? Bobby's mind was spinning. The idea of doing something so intense to his own wife had never even crossed his mind. But as Lacey spoke about the scenario, he noticed her body reacting, and he felt a strange tension building within himself too. I don't know, Lacey, he said slowly. I'm really not sure how I'd even do something like that. Lacey looked at him pleadingly, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. I know it would be hard. That's why it's a fantasy, she whispered. She rolled onto her side, facing away. Bobby turned toward her, reached out, and gently pulled her back into his arms. Wait a second, he said softly. Is this really what you want? With her head resting against his chest, Lacey slowly nodded. When she looked up again, their eyes met, and they kissed. "Then I'll try to make it happen, because I love you." Lacey smiled as they kissed once more. After making love, they both drifted into a deep sleep, their minds lingering on the evening and the intimate conversation they had shared in the bedroom. 2 weeks passed. Lacey was extremely busy at work due to a major new client her firm had landed, and Bobby was assisting the district attorney on a big case. Their lives remained largely the same: dinners, social events. But their sex life had quieted down a bit due to exhaustion. At the same time, Lacey began to notice what Bobby jokingly called baby fever. She had mentioned wanting to start a family after their 3rd year of marriage, and their 3rd anniversary was fast approaching. She started paying closer attention to her biological clock and told Bobby that she could now pinpoint her ovulation with clockwork precision. Bobby was impressed by her dedication and accuracy. Another 4 weeks passed since the night they had discussed her fantasy. Over the past few weeks, Lacey had noticed a subtle change in Bobby. Nothing drastic, but he was becoming more and more distant. He also seemed much less interested in sex. Lacey assumed it was just a typical male reaction to a wife saying she wanted a baby and started tracking her cycles. It had already been 2 months since their conversation about her fantasy, and by now, talking to Bobby in the evenings after work had become difficult. He was often irritable and blamed it on problems at the office and the court case he and his team were working on. Trying to be a supportive wife, Lacey attempted to comfort him with a little whiskey and a few back massages, but Bobby remained closed off. 10 weeks had passed since the night they talked about fantasies, and Lacey finally decided she needed to address the state of their relationship. "Bobby," Lacey said, "we need to talk." The 4 words no husband ever wants to hear. Bobby and Lacey walked into the dining room of their apartment and sat down at the table. "What's wrong?" Lacey said. "Is that ever since the night of the reunion, you've been growing more and more distant. Are you upset with me about what we talked about that night? I know I brought up starting a family. Does that bother you? Will you talk to me? What's going on with you?" Bobby responded in an apologetic tone. "No, baby. I'm not mad at you, and I do want to start a family with you. I've dreamed of it ever since I first married you. It's just that lately, I've been under a lot of pressure with this case. It's so public, and it's been overwhelming. As for that conversation after the reunion night, I'm still thinking about it. I've got some ideas." Lacey smiled, settling in a bit more comfortably. "So, you do want to make a baby with me?" "Yes," he replied, "but let's do it right. When's your next ovulation?" "In about 3 weeks," she said. "Okay, no sex until then. Deal." "Well, we haven't exactly been doing much of that anyway, so fine, deal," she replied. That night, 3 weeks from now, I'm going to help you make a baby." "Perfect," she exclaimed, her heart fluttering. They kissed and went to bed, holding each other close in their arms. 3 weeks later, the time had come. Lacey was finishing up some work at the office that needed to be done. It was around 4:30 p.m. Just as she was about to leave, her boss Allison burst into her office. "We have a problem. There's an urgent project that has to be finished by morning, and it's on your team, Lacey." Lacey's heart sank. She had ordered champagne for the evening and a special bouquet for the dinner table. Now she would have to work late. Her plans were ruined. "My husband is going to be furious," she thought. As she dialed his number, she tried to figure out how to explain. "Hey, honey," she said when he picked up. "Hey, sweetheart." "Ready for tonight?" he asked. "I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'll have to work late. My boss just dropped an urgent project on my desk and my team, and I have to stay late to finish it. Could we push our plans to tomorrow?" "Absolutely not. We'll just have to make it a midnight dinner." Smiling to herself, Lacey replied, "All right. I'll try to wrap this up and get home as soon as I can." "Can't wait." "I love you, sweetheart," Bobby said. "Love you too. See you tonight," she said before hanging up. It was around 11:30 p.m. when Lacey pulled into the parking area near their apartment building. She was completely exhausted. As she got out of the car and made her way up the stairs to their front door, she rubbed the back of her neck, trying to ease the tension. And that's when she started noticing a few unusual things. The complex, which was usually well lit, was almost pitch dark tonight. Normally, when she arrived, the lot would be surrounded by sedans and minivans. But tonight, the parking area was nearly deserted. Without thinking much of it, she approached her front door. The blinds were open, and the apartment was completely dark, something that struck her as odd. Bobby should have been home hours ago. Just as she inserted the key into the lock, it happened, and nothing could have prepared her for what came next. Before she could open the door, she felt two strong hands grab her shoulders and shove her inside, slamming her against the wall. As she struggled to break free, something was quickly pulled over her head and strapped tightly around her mouth, muffling any cries she might have made. Then the attacker spun her around. In panic, she tried to scream, but no sound escaped because of the gag. The figure was dressed entirely in black, wearing a black ski mask. He struck her face twice, then turned her around again, binding her hands behind her back. She struggled fiercely, but it was useless. Another sharp slap sent her, reeling, nearly unconscious. Then the masked figure carried her into the bedroom. At the foot of the bed, she noticed two straps already secured to the frame. Her heart pounded in terror as the man in black fastened them around her ankles, forcing her legs apart. She lay, there gagged, her hands tied behind her back, unable to scream. Tears streamed down her face as she turned her head away, struggling to block out what was happening. The figure hovered over her, breathing heavily, his presence suffocating. He reached for her blouse, and in a sudden, violent motion, tore it open. Lacey whimpered beneath the gag, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Every second stretched like an eternity. Then suddenly the figure stopped. He sat up straight, unmoving, as if caught in hesitation. Something had changed. His breathing slowed. A long, tense silence filled the room. Reaching to the floor beside the bed, the masked figure pulled out something that glinted, a knife. Lacey froze in fear, unsure of what was about to happen. The cold metal traced gently along the inside of her thigh, not cutting, but sending shivers through her already overwhelmed senses. With one swift motion, he removed her undergarments, not violently, but deliberately, methodically. She whimpered, into the gag, confusion and fear flooding her. But the man did not speak. He simply moved with purpose, as though following a ritual. The blade never left her skin, not threatening, but commanding. Then he leaned over her, breathing against her neck, holding her in stillness. She closed her eyes, her thoughts racing, until a moment of shocking clarity struck her. This was the fantasy, the one she had confessed to her husband 3 months ago, the one they had only spoken of once. Slowly, her panic began to subside. The fear blended with realization, and her body began to relax beneath the firm control. She met the man's eyes through the ski mask, and something in the silence told her the truth. It was Bobby. A tear ran down her cheek, not from pain, but release. The fear gave way to surrender. Then, without warning, a new figure stepped from the shadows. A second man. Lacey's heart leapt again. This wasn't part of the plan, she thought. But then the new figure spoke. Is she enjoying herself? That voice. It was unmistakable. The light from the window hit his face, and Lacey froze. It was Bobby. And he wasn't the one in the mask. Lacey's expression changed instantly. If it's not my husband doing this, then who is it? She thought. The masked figure continued, unwavering in his actions, while Bobby slowly walked around the room, which now carried the charged air of something dark and intimate. As the sounds from Lacey grew deeper, caught somewhere between surrender and shock, Bobby stepped closer to the figure. Without a word, He reached up and pulled the ski mask off the man's head. Stunned silence. A storm of emotion crossed Lacey's face in a single, chaotic moment. Shock, confusion, fear, rage, and something else she couldn't name. Because now, the identity of the masked figure was revealed. It was Tom. Pacing slowly around the room, Bobby began speaking to his wife, his voice calm, almost cold, as Tom continued his silent role in the background. He started explaining everything that had happened over the past 3 months. He revealed that after the night of the reunion, he and Tom had gone out for lunch. That's when Tom confessed something that shattered everything. Lacey had been cheating for at least 4 months before the reunion. Bobby told her how Tom had laid it all out. Details about hotel rooms, secret meetings, everything. Then he looked at her with a gaze that was both piercing and hollow. He added one final, devastating truth. Tom never loved her. To him, she was just another unfaithful woman, a reflection of exactly what Bobby saw in her now. Bobby's voice grew sharp and furious as he shouted at Lacey. Still bound, she began to cry again, helpless and overwhelmed, while Tom remained silently in place. "Well, sweetheart," Bobby said, his tone now icy and deliberate. "Like I told you before, I'm going to help you make a baby. No question about that." He turned and walked to the bedroom door, then opened it. To Lacey's horror, several men from the construction crew working on their new home stepped inside. They looked ready, prepared, as if this moment had been planned. Lacey let out a broken sob, realizing with dread that this night was far from over. Suddenly, Lacey felt the pressure shift. Tom's breathing grew uneven, and his eyes rolled back slightly. She could sense it. He was about to reach his limit. But then, nothing. There was no release. No warmth. Only the abrupt tension of restraint. He stepped back, coldly, mechanically. Then, without a word, Tom turned to Bobby. "I'm not taking responsibility for anything," he said with quiet contempt. "Let your crew handle what comes next." Lacey's breath caught. Crew. Several men entered, faces she vaguely recognized from the construction site. They weren't laughing. They weren't speaking. They simply stood there, waiting for direction. Lacey looked to Bobby, her eyes pleading. But he remained motionless, watching. This wasn't passion. This wasn't love. This was a punishment. A show. A message. She was no longer in control. And the night was just beginning. After the construction crew had left, Bobby leaned down toward Lacey and said quietly, "Think twice next time before betraying someone who actually loved you." Bobby and Tom removed the gag and untied her. Then, without another word, they walked out of the room, leaving Lacey exhausted and curled up in the corner of the bed. "Let's go," Tom said. "She needs time to think about her child. Thank you for being with us. And if you're one of those who watches silently, just leave a like. It helps new stories come to light."